Is it possible that men, women, and children are to be doomed to lifelong slavery for the simple act of coming into the state of Illinois? Are we to be forever prescribed, harassed, annoyed, and persecuted this way? Frederick Douglass, 1853.
As time went on, the use of indentured servants proved to be a useful alternative for those who wished to keep servants. Slave owners appeared in court with their slaves, who had no choice but to voluntarily agree to serve them for a set period of time. Some indentures ran for as many as 99 years, and indentures involving young children and even infants were common. Indentured servitude in Illinois became the equivalent of slavery. Cahokia courthouse records are full of these indentures. Indentures were not limited to French descendants or to Southern Illinois. In 1835, Abraham Lincoln's brother-in-law, Ninian W. Edwards, entered into an indentured agreement with an 11-year-old girl named Hepsy. In 1845, the Illinois Supreme Court case of Giroux versus Giroux abolished slavery and its various forms of indentured servitude in Illinois. The 1848 Illinois Constitution then formally declared, "There shall be neither slavery nor involuntary servitude in the state."
We talked a little bit about some of the foundations for our legal system, which is really important when we're in this courtroom here that we understand that. We talked about how the French law laid a foundation, right? Okay. So when we're talking about slavery, one of the really important key things to remember would be what's called the Code Noir, or a black law of 1685. And that was a specific French law that governed freedom for African Americans and had very specific details in it about who would be free here in this country. So for example, if two individuals who are both slaves have children, is the child free? No. But because the black law made people property, described people as property, it even detailed which individual's owner that child would go and live with. And it was actually the female slave's owner that child would then go and live with. So some very detailed nuances about freedom in the 1685 Code Noir, the French Black Code, that gave us our start in the institution of slavery. And so when we're in Illinois and people like Abraham Lincoln are trying to navigate these legal barriers, there's a lot of history behind them, but there's also new restrictions that were being created. And so some of those things were discussed in this very room. Illinois had its own set of black laws that put restrictions on free blacks living in Illinois. So we've talked about how some people and slavery were grandfathered into the Illinois system because of French law. But many people who were African Americans did live freely in Illinois as well. Does that make sense? How some people were continued in the institution of slavery in life in Illinois, and other people were allowed to live freely, but then still under different sets of restrictions. Does that make sense? In the 1850s, free African Americans living in Springfield gathered in this building to strategize for educational rights. They were responsible for some of the taxes that were paying for a new form of public education, but they weren't allowed to send their children to school. Does that sound like free Illinois?
No.
No. So they strategized here to develop a plan. And then they had to appeal to the Illinois legislature for approval, if you will. And all that they were asking for was the ability to set up their own school. And they were denied that right. So that struggle had to wait. They had to come back. They didn't see a difference right away.
We were talking about
Jamison Jenkins here, and the house is gone. We've been doing archaeology here, and one of the things we found a lot of information. We're still doing the research, but one of the things we found was just a little piece of pottery, broken shard, and the archaeologist did the research and looked at it, and it was from a mug that was written on it, Reward of Merit. Reward of Merit was something given to students for an achievement, something they accomplished. So, you know, we don't know for sure, we'll probably never know, but that Reward of Merit, that little artifact, that little piece of broken pottery can really be like a touchstone to the education opportunities that James Blanks, who lived here, fought for. That represented what Jamison Jenkins fought for in helping others to achieve more. It was something, you know, we'd like to think that maybe one of the children that lived here earned when they were finally able to go to school, thanks to what James Blanks did. And so the reward is given from the challenges that were faced and overcome. And it could be in a classroom, it could be at home, it could be in the community.
But do you think they gave up?
No.
How proud do you think they would be to hear our conversation today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you go to school?
Du Bois.
Louder.
Du Bois.
Du Bois. Where do you go to school?
Franklin.
Where do you go to school?
Lancaster High School.
Wow. You know, there's history behind all three of those names. There's an educational history
Sure is.
behind all three of those places. That should make all of us proud that those schools are in our community. And even though it took a long time, and there was a lot of people who walked out of this building frustrated because they sought a larger sense of justice, we won, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we won.
So what I'm hearing from you is things such as perseverance and hard work and also getting involved are all things which these young men could do to help to make a difference. Would you agree?
Gentlemen, do you agree?
Yes, we do, sir.
It was that which gave promise that in due time the weight should be lifted from the shoulders of all men, and that all should have an equal chance. This is the sentiment embodied in that Declaration of Independence.
Abraham Lincoln, 1861.